Good afternoon, America, the greatest country on earth where hope springs eternal. And today's special guest, we have two special guests. The first one that we'll interview, World War II Army veteran, 100-year-old Jack Moran. You may remember Jack from a couple weeks ago where we started doing some stories with Bill. And now Jack has some stories for us to dig a little deeper into what the greatest generation gave to this great country. Welcome, Jack.
Oh, good. Thanks. Glad to be here. And
hey, Jack.
tell you about.
And with us also today is our special guest host. You love her, from Nashville, Tennessee, Stacy Case.
Hey, everybody. So glad to be back with you today. And Jack, it is my honor to be able to chat with you once again. You know, we could just sit and listen to you and Bill all day long, story after story after story, and just try to soak up a little bit of that wisdom, just a little bit.
Yeah, I could talk for hours without notes.
Well, that's great, because we're going to get started with that right away. So okay, where we left off, we left off, you know, you were telling stories about Battle of the Bulge and what it was like to liberate the concentration camp Buchenwald. So what were some of the keys? I know you have some great stories on keys to survival, so I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you talk.
Okay. But there's a great deal of luck in battle, good luck and bad luck. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about what I think were bad luck, but turned out to be good luck. The first morning we were in combat, we got out of our foxholes with orders to just advance and start heading towards the Germans. We'd gone about 15 feet when the Germans opened up on us with machine guns and 88s. They could see us. They were up in the hills. They could see us, but we could not see them. The first 88 exploded about 20 feet, 40 feet to my right, knocked down 3 of our men. But you don't have time to go check and see out there. You must keep going. You holler for a medic and hope the medic gets there to help the wounded. Good friend of mine named Hugh Gorman was hit by one of the machine guns. He hit in the face and ripped his face right off. Mm. He was gone, and I never would see him again. But 50 years later, about 50 years later, 60 years later, I was leafing through some military magazines, and I came across a 2-page article about Hugh Gorman. And I was so glad to see this. And it described what Hugh went through after being machine gunned in the face. And he was in a military hospital for 4 years, had 13 operations to put his face back together, and his jaw and his teeth and all that go with it. But so glad to talk to Hugh. We thought we'd never see each other again. And through that article, I was able to contact Hugh. I got his phone number. I called him, and he was so surprised to hear from me. And we had a very joyful reunion. He was back in Ohio now. Anyway, talking to Hugh about what he went through. He in the hospital for 4 years, had 13 operations to put his face back together. And so I asked Hugh, was he glad he got hit? Was he glad he went through all this? He said, hell yes. He said, that was $1 million wound. Now, I would consider $1 million wound being hit in the shoulder or in the legs, someplace where you had to go back to the hospital, but not to be hit in the face. But thankfully, it missed his spinal cord and his brain, so he survived. They had a picture of Hugh in this article, and I didn't recognize him at all. And he understood that. But we had a great conversation, and we'll get together someday. But he was so lucky to get hit. He considered himself so lucky to get hit in the face and get wounded like he did. Another good article, a man named Bob Jacoby. Bob was a military spotter. And a military spotter has to be, artillery spotter has to be up in the second story of a home so he can see, or a building, so he can see how the shells are exploding on the enemy and see if they should be, are they off, left, right, up, or short. So Bob was in this second story of this building one day, directing artillery fire, An 88 came right through the window and exploded in the room, and a big piece of shrapnel ripped out Bob's left kidney. So Bob's laying on the floor bleeding to death. And at that moment, just moments later, the Germans attacked that building and drove out the Americans. But you can't take, in a situation like that, you cannot take the wounded with you or the dead. You must just get out of there yourself. So they left Bob laying on the floor bleeding to death. And 3 Germans entered the room. And Bob thought, well, he's just going to pull out this, one of them's going to pull out his Luger and blow my brains out and put me out of my misery, which did not happen. One of the 3 Germans happened to be a medic, and he had some binding material with him. So he tied up Bob's side real tight to stop the loss of blood. He was bleeding. He couldn't stop the internal bleeding, but he stopped the external bleeding. So he did that, and so Bob's laying there on the floor, but the German said, you're going to die within 30 minutes, no matter what happens. You're dead in 30 minutes. And about 20 minutes later, we attacked the building, drove the Germans out, and were able to get Bob out of there and get him to a hospital. So he lived. And Bob and I have talked many times on the phone since then. He died not too long ago, but his good luck that one of the Germans was a medic, and of course it was Hugh Gorman's good luck that he didn't die. So anyway, I'll tell you one more case. A fellow named Frank Nagel. The night we went to cross the Rhine River, we were going to cross the river at exactly midnight, and we were down on the shore of the river, and we had 16 little boats down there, very, very small boats. The surface of the boat's about the size of a pool table, and they're going to put 8 men in each boat, put our rifles down in the middle of the boat, and pick up a paddle. And about 5 minutes to 12, the captain came up to me and said, Jack, I want a radio man in your boat. So I want you to take Frank Nagel and give me one of, Frank was a radio man, and give me one of your men. So that was fine with me. So I put Frank Nagel in. I was number 1 in boat 16. And then number 2 man was my assistant. He was beside me. The number 3 man was right behind me. That's where I put Frank. I put Frank behind me, and I gave him from Minnesota to the captain to go put in another boat. So at 12 o'clock, we quietly put our boats in the water and start paddling as quietly as good. And of course, it's impossible for 150 men to keep quiet. Anyway, we got out in the middle of the boat, out in the middle of the river, and the Germans lit up the river like Dodger Stadium at 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It was flares all over the place. And then they opened up on us with heavy machine guns. And the first heavy machine that opened up on us, and the first burst just skinned me, just got past me by an inch and nailed Frank in the upper body and killed Frank. So Frank toppled over on me. And another burst went through my pants on the right-hand side of me. He hit my number 8 or 9 man. Another burst just cleared my head, and he killed the engineer in the back of the boat. He toppled over into the river. So we were just got shot up pretty bad. And the minute the machine guns opened up, I heard praying. I heard guys praying for help. I heard guys cursing. I heard guys screaming as they got hit. And it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And when we landed, I was screaming at my men, dig, dig, dig. I just kept screaming, dig those paddles as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And we managed to get to our boat got to the other side, got to the shore. And in civilian life, you'd pull the boat up on the shore and take care of your equipment. But in scene like this, we just jumped out of the boat and let the boat go. So the boat went spinning down the river with the dead and the wounded, and as did other boats in the same situation. So we flopped on the beach and trying to catch our breath after going under such a tremendous physical and psychological program. It was real tough. So the word came down to get up and attack the city in front of us, but it was pitch dark. You couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. So we all got up and we started firing our M1 rifles from the hip as fast as we could, just firing into the dark at hip level, hoping to hit whatever was in there, if there was anybody in front of us. And about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we reached the innermost buildings and was able to watch they were firing 20-millimeter anti-aircraft guns at us from up on the castle above us, and we were watching these shells go screaming by and hitting the guys on the beach. But we lost about 70 men that night in the water. It was a terrible, terrible loss. But that was our job. And that one more case of the night that oh wait, no, that was okay. Now okay, I tell you a story about. I told you a story about Bob Jacoby.
You talked about Frank.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah. Frank Nagel. Frank Nagel was the name of the kid on the river, and Bob Jacoby was the up in the hills.
Yeah, that was your spotter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well, while you're coming to that, I mean, one of the things that I noticed in reading up on your history is, I'm not sure if it was your fault or just the luck that you brought, but it seemed like every unit that you were assigned to suffered significant casualties. There was one where I think 38 out of 40 of your guys died in like 15 seconds. Another incident where 96 were killed and 113 were injured.
that's the Star Valley. Yeah,
Yeah, in the very first
Yeah.
valley. So
That's when you were in the
I mean,
foxholes. Yeah.
it was a bloody, messy war, and for you to come out through all of that, Battle of the Bulge and all that, crossing the Rhine under gunfire, and it's pretty remarkable that you're still here.
Oh, it is absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. I'll tell you one more quick story. We were in a tough battle on Hill 360 in the Saar Valley. We were fighting the 11th Panzer Division, and they were tough. We were relieved late in the afternoon and came down off the hill to get rest and something to drink and get ready for our next mission. Got down to the bottom of the hill, and I was dying of thirst. Now, in combat, there's 2 things you must have every single day. You must have rest and you must have water. Food is unnecessary. It's vital, but it's not necessary to have it that day. So I went down to the bottom of the hill and I was dying of thirst, absolutely dying. I had to have some water. And at the bottom of the hill was a horse trough, a big stone horse trough with a statue in it. But this water in there must have been the worst water in the world. Must have been 1 million microbes per ounce. But I put my canteen in there and got some water and drank it. And it relieved my need for water. We got an order to circle around this hill and go into a town called Walsheim up the road about a mile. So we left the area, went up to Walsheim, got into the building for the night. And that night, it was my turn to take out a night patrol. And that's the most dangerous thing in the world, is taking out a night patrol. because you're leading 2 or 3 other men, maybe 4 of you. You're going into the dark, hoping to contact the enemy, either kill some of the enemy or capture some, or just see what they were doing. Just bring back information for G2. So it was my turn that night to take out the patrol that night, and about 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, before the patrol was to go, I started to get sick from drinking that bad water. Oh, I got sick. I was turning inside out.
Oh,
I thought I was going to die. So one of the other sergeants saw how sick I was. And he says, Jack, you're too sick to go out on patrol tonight. I'll take your patrol tonight. You take mine tomorrow night. And I said, Johnny, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So I curled up in the corner of the building in the room and just in horrible shape physically. And about 9 o'clock, Johnny and these other 2 guys took off and went out on night patrol. They came back in about 45 minutes carrying Johnny. He was all shot up. And to this day, I wonder where I would be if I had taken off that patrol. Would I have gone where Johnny went? Would I have been shot up the same he was? So that drink of water saved my life.
Yeah.
A terrible
and nearly
drink of
killed
water.
you at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what
Jack,
that
you
expression
talk.
is.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, never going. Go ahead. I was going to say,
I
try
was
to
just
say
gonna-
something ironic. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna. I don't know if you all could hear me. I was saying it was the drink of water that saved your life, but almost killed you at the same time too. But Jack, I just wanted to ask you. You're in those foxholes for 6 days, and you lose all of these comrades, and you just had the will to keep going. And I was just reading how you were just eager to get to the front lines. And what was it like? What went through your mind that moment that you arrived at the Buchenwald Concentration Camp and saw these emaciated survivors, hundreds of them, just waiting to
Yeah.
see you?
Yeah, but both
What was that
those
like?
yeah, both of those circumstances were tough. It was tough to lay in the bottom of tough to lay in the bottom of a foxhole for 6 days straight, night and day, with no blankets, no
Yeah.
bedrolls, just the clothes on our back, and we were freezing our butts off. And after the 3rd day, we had no more food. So went without food, went without water. Well, the snow was our water, of course, but just a horrible circumstance. And for the first 3 days, we had K ration. You open up a K ration, you got a little couple of cigarettes in it, a chocolate bar, a little can of food of some kind, and so at the end of 3 days, we didn't have that anymore, and so we were out of food, we were out of cigarettes, and we're not worst of all, but we were out of toilet paper too, which was
Oh, that's a bad thing.
that was a bad situation.
Maybe there's
Yeah.
3 things you need besides water and rest. Maybe you need that TP also.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we just, and at night the Germans would attack us at night too, while we were in these foxholes, and we'd have to drive them off, and but going without anything to eat. Oh, and also we didn't take off our clothes for 28 days straight. We had the same clothes on night and day. And you talk about being dirty and filthy and crappy. We were horribly.
And wasn't it like bad because like your socks and you get like foot fungus for having those socks on for so many days straight?
Yeah. We take take flea powder, open up our shirts, sew some flea powder in, open up our shorts, sew the flea powder in, hoping to cut down on infestation, whatever kind there was. But
Oh,
we
goodness.
were just filthy, dirty, and sick, and tired, and scared, and cold, and just you can't imagine how bad it was.
Yeah, I can only
And so
imagine.
when you walked in, yeah, and when you walked into the concentration camp, just take us there to that moment. What
Yeah.
did you see, and what did you think?
Well, it was so hard to imagine any human beings treating other human beings this way. These people were all emaciated. If they weighed 160 when they went in there, they weighed 80 when I got there. They had no nutrition of any good. It was all terrible food, and of course the danger of being killed any day. They were killing their bodies in these pits, and people walking around, staggering around, one just couldn't believe that they were freed and they could go back home, or whatever home might be. Their home may have been destroyed long before that. Their family may have been destroyed also. So they were going back to something very unknown. It was horrible. So we did our best to help them.
You were telling the story last time about how I think it was the Burgermeister and his wife.
Yes.
They were forced to help clean up. You forced the town people to clean up.
Yep.
And then they ended up killing themselves.
That's right. They went home and hung themselves. They were so embarrassed and ashamed of but since these people around the camp, they must have sensed what was going on, because that smoke, that terrible smell was around the cities, these little hamlets around there. But nothing they could do about it except go on living.
Right. Otherwise, they would have been probably shot by the Germans.
That's very true. Yeah, but it was so horrible. To see people do that to other people. It's just how any human race can do that. But there are atrocities going on around the world right now in the Middle East. You read about 1,000 people being killed in some kind of excursion of some kind. But
I was just going to ask you about what's we see a little bit in the news. Obviously there was more than 6 million Jews, probably 3 or 4 million gypsies, and a variety of other what the Germans considered undesirables that were massacred during World War II. And now you see, like in the press, they talk about genocide going on in Gaza or in the Middle East, or what's going on in Iran right now, where the Iranians are killing mass killings of protesters.
yes.
Wonder what your thoughts are. I don't want to get too political because that's not what we do here, but there is some interesting things going on right now.
But again, it's just as bad as the concentration camps. It's just you're killing somebody, whether they're incarcerated or not. You're doing a terrible thing to the other people. These people that are doing this are godless people, obviously. They might have their Quran or whatever they want to believe in, but they're going against human nature. They're going against how you should treat other people. Other people should be. We're all brothers and sisters, all of us. We've all come from the great Creator, and we should treat each other as brothers and sisters. But that's not going on, and this is going to continue for a long time. It's just been going on for thousands of years, apparently.
No, for sure. And I think it's always interesting that, especially veterans who have seen like the most or harshest combat, or have been, a part of like what you've been a part of, where you've seen like 38 out of 40 of your platoon wiped out in like 15 seconds, are much more reluctant, I should say, to go off to war, or think that war should be started. That definitely all avenues of diplomacy, or whatever you want to call it, for peace is so important.
Mm.
And those that haven't served are so easily, hey, we just got to take them out or something.
Yeah, and combat is so scary that any number of our men were shooting themselves to get out of there. That guy Johnny who relieved me that night, he shot himself eventually.
Mm.
And they get a dishonorable discharge. It's terrible. They get, some of them get court-martialed, put in military prisons, and then having to live with that the rest of your life, that you were a coward, that you shot yourself to avoid being in combat with the other guys. One nurse from the Vision Hospital told us that one day she had 7 cases of guys being shot in the foot. That's
No
crazy.
way.
I don't see how many ways I wouldn't have the guts to shoot myself in the foot in the first place. But I was hoping for a $1 million wound. I was hoping to hit in the shoulder or in the leg someplace, or even in the stomach or chest, but something non-fatal. But just get me out of here.
Yeah.
It was
Jack,
terrible.
Terrible. And thank you for just walking back through this with us. I'm sure it never goes away. I'm sure there were years of nightmares and PTSD, if that was even a diagnosis back then. Talk about life after you got back. How was it to assimilate back into modern American life with your wife, Grace, and you all ended up having children and then adopted some? Just kind of walk us through that.
Well, we came back, and of course we partied for the first couple of weeks after we got back, but we slipped into normal life almost as if we just had gone on a trip someplace and come back. We got re-entered college, got a job, and just tried to forget about the war.
Yeah.
I met a beautiful, wonderful lady, and we got married a couple of years later. And she was, she made me what I am today. She was so perfect, and we had some beautiful children. But again, we didn't. I thought talking about that TSP or whatever they call it.
PTSD.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the boys coming back from the Middle East are all coming back with that. But I got a call one day about back 15, 20 years ago from a VA employee up in Colorado, a lady. And she said, Jack, I want you, I don't heard from a hole in the ground. She said, I want you to go in and be tested for PST.
PTSD,
Yeah, I can't get her. And anyway, and
Okay.
I said, I don't.
It's
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
why-
letters, Jack. I understand. A lot of letters.
Okay, I said, I told her, I said, I don't know why you want me to do this. I don't know what you're even talking about. She said, just trust me. I want you to go in for this. I set up an appointment for you to go see a psychologist and go talk to him. So I said, okay. So I went to meet this psychologist, and I got in, and the first thing I said to her, she's a lovely lady. I said, doctor, I said, I don't know what this is that you're testing me for, and I know I don't have it. And she just said, sit down. So I sat down, and she started going through my background and through me. And within 30 minutes, she had me crying, and I couldn't believe that I was weeping over my experience. And she said, you have got it without a doubt. So they set me up for some compensation for it.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think PTSD was a thing as an official diagnosis. I think they called it shell shock. Was what it
Yes.
was what it was called
Yeah.
up until the Gulf War, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting how that all works.
Yeah. Even on days when we were not involved in Pacific battles, 88s were bursting all around us, and they could see us coming, and they threw it at us all the time. And so a lot of guys were just advancing across the field, and an 88 explodes right next to them, killed both of them.
I mean, you saw a lot of death and destruction, that's for sure. I mean, it had to be fairly brutal too, because when you were at with Patton, I mean, they were throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you to try to drive you back into the ocean.
That's right. Yeah. They were. We were losing 10, 15, 20 minutes every single day. When you open your eyes in the morning, you wonder, is today the day I get it? I can't, the longer you're here, the less chance you have of surviving. They're going to get you.
So
You know-
what was it like? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What,
You
what,
go
what
ahead.
was it like when you came back the first time you saw your wife?
Well, I wasn't married at that time, but I met, I remember coming down the hall. She worked as a nurse in a building, and I was supposed to return from Europe and be in that town on a Monday or a Tuesday. And I didn't get there when she thought I was getting there. So I came up the hall, and I started walking down this long hall. And from that office door, out came the words, "You dirty rat." I was a day late and $1 short. But no, it was wonderful coming home, just to be free and to realize that you're going to live and you could go on with your life. It was so wonderful, so wonderful.
What was it like serving under General Patton? You know, we hear about his style of spirited. It was profanity laden. Did you find that motivating, Jack?
The movie,
No, George
Serving
Patton.
under General
Yeah.
General Patton.
yeah. I saw George one day. He was sitting right next to me one day,
Yeah.
and he didn't use nice words. And George was sitting in the passenger seat in this Jeep was full of right beside me. So I'm sitting, I could reach out and shake his hand. Anyway, the truck in front of us was having trouble. You could hear the gears grinding. And George's driver hollered at his truck driver. He said, "Come on, let's get going. What's the problem up there?" And the driver hollered back, I can't move it. I'm going to burn out the clutch." And George hollered back, "Burn that son of a bitch out." And when the driver looked back, saw that the red flag on the hood was 2 white stars. He knew who it was. So he put it in the ditch, and George went tearing down the road. I've become a very close friend of George's granddaughter, Helen. And she was at my birthday party about a couple months ago. Lovely lady.
Oh.
And she sent me some nice pictures of George, so some memorabilia of his.
That's awesome. So now you've met your wife and you're settling down after the war. What was it about your soon-to-be wife that said, "Okay, this is the one"?
That's a tough question to answer. You get that feeling. I don't know if it was the first kiss or one, but you get that feeling. She was a staunch Catholic, as I am, and that united us, of course. And it was a perfect match. She was made for me. She was made in heaven for me, and it just gave my life so much happiness. And she smoked those damn cigarettes so often and so much that she finally ended up with lung cancer and died.
Oh,
That was
sorry.
terrible. Yeah, that was horrible. And we all
So
miss her
sorry.
very much. And in fact, I have her picture on the first page of my. At least I did have it. Had it on the first. No, that's Tom Langston. What?
That's okay.
Yeah, I had. Anyway, she's in my mind, in my heart every day. And I'm just sorry that she's gone.
Yeah. And Jack, back then, you all didn't know about the dangers of cigarettes. In fact, you were told quite the opposite. So it took a while for the truth to come out on that as well. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry about your wife, but thank you for telling us about Grace and just sharing with us what she's meant to you and how she enhanced your life and just about your family. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It's a long story. It's 100-year-old story. I mean, I still can't believe how long you have lived and all you have done and all the experiences you have had and what you've lived through. It's amazing.
Yeah. Where did you guys end up settling after you got married?
We went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I got a job at the Schlitz Brewery while going to Marquette University. I eventually graduated from Marquette, and I stayed with Schlitz for 11 years. I wouldn't be in California if it wasn't for them, because they transferred me out here when they opened up a new brewery in Van Nuys. And so they transferred me out here in about 1980, 1955. They transferred me to California. So thank God for that. My kids thank me every day for bringing them to California. It was cold weather. The cold weather back there was horrible. How
Yeah.
people can live up there in that on Lake Superior all their lives is a mystery to me, but I think we got out of it.
And is that old Schlitz Brewery? Is that the one in Van Nuys? Is that the one now that's the Anheuser-Busch Brewery?
No, they're separate. They were both on the same railroad track, but they're about a mile apart. But Schlitz at that time was the biggest brewery in the world, and it was a wonderful product. But they split it up, sold it off to somebody from Detroit. No, Budweiser still punching out the beer up there.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember I think the Schlitz Brewery in Milwaukee is still there. It sits up on top of this hill.
Yeah.
And overlooks kind of the downtown area.
Yeah, wonderful product. Great family, good people to work for. But I walked out of in the boss's office one day after 11 years. I said, I'm quitting. I'm giving you 6 months notice. I'm leaving. And I decided I wanted to go into the world and see what I could make of myself. I thought you're not told what somebody thought you were worth. So I was very successful. Within 2 years, I was making double what I used to make at Schlitz.
That's smart. Good for you. And then you've also spent just decades speaking to schools, reminding young people the price of freedom. As you've been around to these schools and now been around 100 years, what values from your era and your impact on America and American life are missing today, do you feel, Jack?
Oh, I'm as a veteran, and the letters, the ranks are thinning very quickly in World War II veterans. It's dropping very fast. I belong to different organizations. I give talks as much as possible. I'm available to give talks, which I do at gatherings or at high schools, just trying to tell people the word that freedom is so precious and so hard to come by in many cases, but you must treasure it, you must value it and promote it, and just be a good person, take care of your neighbor, and help anybody you can. Honor the flag. I'm tired
Yes.
of, I hate
That,
watching
honor the flag. Yes.
I say hate water the flag, the Star Spangled Banner being played at various civic sports, and some of the guys they don't put their hand on their heart, or they just look around and chew gum, and drives me nuts.
No, that's a great lesson for everyone, especially for parents bringing up their kids. I think, with the Olympics going on, there's been a lot of talk in the news about Olympic athletes making political statements, which I never understood, either whether it's athletes or entertainers. Like, you're there to compete, you're representing your country. All due respect, no one gives a shit what your political opinion is, either way, for that matter. I'm not here to listen to you talk about politics. If you want to do that, there's another forum for that. But that's why I love what the hockey players said yesterday after the game about, we're here to represent our country. We're proud to be Americans. And we're here to play hockey. That's exactly what you want to hear.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up now with Jack, and we're going to take like a 1 minute, 2 minute break. And then we're going to have Bill Dillon, U.S. Navy vet. Bill Dillon's going to join us, and we'll be right back with you.
Jack, it's been our pleasure once again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I enjoyed being with you.
All right, we're back and we're here now. We had to up our age here. We went from a 100-year-old World War II Army veteran from the European theater to a 101-year-old Navy veteran from the Pacific theater. And we welcome with us here Bill Dillon. As always, my co-host Stacy Case is here. And let's dive right into it, Bill. Literally, you were a submariner.
Yeah,
So we dove right in there. You sink the aircraft carrier. You go home. What happens next?
Well, before I do that, I'm going to answer that question. But the reason why I'm here is because I'm a walking history book, and I know that. And Jack is a walking history book, and there's very, very few people around. And my real purpose is it's not for me. It never was for me. And everything I ever did was always for somebody else. And the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons why I'm here is I want to excite the new generations that's becoming behind us. And I want them to know that people like Jack and I did what we did. Then by gosh, you guys ought to be able to do equal or even better than what we did. Now to answer John's question here about the aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier that we sunk, it was so different in this sense. When we sunk that thing, it was during a raging typhoon. And the only reason why we knew that the fleet was coming by, it was more than a carrier, there's a couple of destroyers and a couple of other boats with it, quite a few. And we had broken the code of the Japanese, or they did, and they notified us that the fleet was on its way back to Japan, and they had left trucks. And on this aircraft carrier, there were two aircraft carriers, actually a truck. And what they did just before they had left truck, they had sunk our sister ship, which was the USS Sculpin, which was the 191. Our boat was 192, and they had just been sunk. And they tried to get in a battle with the Japanese. And of course, they were the losers. And 40 some people were rescued, and 21 were put on one carrier, and 20 was put on the other carrier. And the ship that got sunk, which was the Sculpin, the skipper, not the skipper, but the commander of the task force was on the boat, and he got the Medal of Honor. And the reason why he got the Medal of Honor was because he knew so much about the secrecy of the what's going on in the Navy Department, and he was afraid to do that, so he went down with the boat. And so the 21 people that went on this one aircraft carrier, which is a CHUYO, and included in that were these 21 of my friends. And these were the people that when we were in Pearl Harbor, we had gone to dances together. We went to bars and we had barbecues and played ball and all that sort of stuff. Just 3 weeks before that. So they get put on this aircraft carrier. Of course, we didn't know that they were on the aircraft carrier. We didn't know that. But anyway, to finish the story, that they had notified us that this fleet was coming. So what we did, we went out in front, way out in front, and then we had to wait 3 days for it to come by. And we weren't even sure they were going to come by because the weather was so bad. And what does that mean about the weather? Well, in a submarine, most of the attacks that you make in sinking of any vessels or engagement with any vessels is usually done at the depth of 45 to 50 feet, where the submarine is sort of submerged, and the only thing sticking up is the periscopes. And so normally, before you go down, what you would do if you're on the deck, and you would use your binoculars, and you tried to find out what the vessels were that you're going to make an attack on. Now, the reason for Jesus, this story gets long, but the reason why we did that was that you want to identify the vessels that you're shooting at, because you want to know the depth the ships that you're shooting. You want to know the length of it, and you want to know how fast you could go, because when you fire a torpedo, the earliest you're going to hit it is within 17 to 90 seconds, and so they're moving and you're moving, so you have to make sure that you compensate for that. So we didn't know any of that. So all we had was the radar, and I was on the radar. And so the only inputs that you got to what we call the TDC, which is the target data computer. And what you have to do, you have to put the right information into that computer so it does its computations for you. And then when you fire, you just follow what the computer told you. So what we did is that since we couldn't see anything whatsoever, that in fact we're on the surface and everything else, you couldn't see anything, and we're reporting the radar to the TDC operator, and he records that, and then the TDC records it, and then it in turn sends it to the torpedoes in the forward engine room or the aft engine room, or the aft torpedo room. And so here, what we did, we came back, all I could do, all I was reporting was a whole bunch of blips. I don't even know what a blip is, but if you see these things on TV and they show you checking your heart and you see your heart movements, and well, a blip is the same thing. And so you're looking at the ship, you'll see different blips. And the size of the blip that you get sort of indicates to you that that's a larger vessel than any of the others. And so what I did is I picked out the largest blip that we could see on the screen. We had no idea what it was, and reporting its range, and the speed and all that sort of stuff to get into the TDC. And then what we did, we fired four torpedoes from the forward torpedo row, and believe it or not, and two of them struck. Now, if you want to picture this for a second, here's a submarine, doesn't know what's out there, hasn't seen it. All we got is radar. Here's a ship, our fleet of ships, they're moving. They're doing their they didn't make any movements to disengage from us because they didn't think a submarine would do what we were going to do. And so but they're moving and we're moving and the torpedo's moving, and you never saw it. All you got was the radar guy giving you the information. And by gosh, we hit 2 out of 4. What happened? That alone is absolutely almost unbelievable.
Yes.
It's more than sheer luck.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did it. So what it did, it stopped the carrier, and we did. That was at midnight, by the way. Besides all that, it was midnight, and so we didn't see it. We didn't see the ship until about 9 o'clock the next morning. But all told, we fired 11 torpedoes at, and then we sunk it. But then all these guys were jumping off the boats and everything else, and we weren't trying to do anything to save any one of them. But the Japanese, with their destroyers, they were trying to rescue as many of the guys that they could. So on these 21 guys, 20 of them died. 20 of them died. And how they died, I'm going to tell you this. This is, John tells you, I can go on and go on, but anyway. But what happened was that of the 20 guys that died, they knew it was us. They knew they were hit, and they were saying, "Sink this son of a bitch! Sink this son of a bitch!" In other words, they just got sunk themselves 3 weeks before. Now they're getting sunk again, and they didn't give a damn. They just said, "Sink this son of a bitch." And the only survivor, the only reason why I know that, the only survivor was George Rochek. And George Rochek happened to be a survivor, and he went to the prison in Japan in the mines for a year before he came back. And then he came to our reunion, and I told him everything we were doing to sink him. He was telling me everything that they were doing to save themselves and what have you. And I'm the only guy who can tell you, because nobody else talked to George with respect to that. So anyway, what George was saying that when he was on the boat and he was in the water, and he got rescued, but got on board. When he got aboard the Japanese ship, they threw him back in the water again. Then he got back on again, and they threw him out the second time. And then the third time, just a wave had just threw him up on the side of the deck on the ladder, and he got halfway up the ladder and climbed aboard. And then they were going to throw him over again, but the Japanese sailors stopped him. The skipper wanted to throw him over again, and my God, the Japanese stopped him and said, "Leave him alone." And so that's how. So that's a long story in itself. And all I've done is just give you the high point, but I could talk to you a long time about the whole operation.
Well,
So
Bill, I mean, you have gazillions of stories, and just tell us why you think you are still here. I mean, you are 101 years old. You're the last remaining out of 200 men, last
Yeah.
remaining surviving crew member
Right.
of the USS Sailfish. What is the
Not-
secret?
Wait a minute, not only the 200. Everybody I went to school with is gone. Everybody I work with is gone. Everybody's on a submarine is gone. I have nobody left except new friends, like I'm talking to you right now. I've started a new life, okay, it's really began when everybody's gone. And why am I here? I think, well, for one thing, it was a fantastic wife, but that's something else, and it had to go. Well, I'm so long. But one of the things I believe. The other thing is, and I want to
Janet.
follow up with what Jack was saying earlier. There will never be another well, I don't want to say generation. No, never, like the guys that grew up during the Depression. If you recall, the Depression, I was born in 24, and the Depression came in 29. And so we didn't, the war didn't start till December the 8th, really, but when we formed it. But anyway, in December. So we had 12 years of learning, of working through the Depression. We'll never have that again. We learned what we did. We learned how to do with nothing. We had absolutely nothing. And you think about it, no air conditioning, no radios, no television, no washing machines, no dryers, no ironers, none of that stuff existed, none. And so we went through a time that was absolutely, it will never happen again, never. And the wars are changing so fastly with respect to the ability to fight wars. So we came from a generation that will never happen again. And guys like us, we learned, as I said, to do away with nothing, but not the kids today. And then we never complained, right, Jack? We never complained.
Never complained.
no one would listen if you did. But speaking of that technology and the advances and all the things you talked about that weren't around in the Depression, one of the things that came out of World War II was radar. You were a radar man, and you could say that the radar was kind of the start of the beginnings of what is now our space program.
It really was the first.
And so I'd be really interested. You come back from the war, you marry Janet, and then you go to work for the space program. How first of all, how did you get into the space program? What prompted you to get into the space program, and then what was that like?
Oh my! The reason why I'm laughing, it's my whole career. Seriously, not really. My whole career was designed by my wife. I'm not joshing with you. I'm not kidding you. Like when we're talking about how I got selected with respect to the radar, the way everything started when I went at the boot camp, I was fantastic in math then. And what they had, they give you quite a test to find out what you're proficient in, right? And they just figured out, here's a guy who's so brilliant in math that he ought to be pretty good at electronics. And so that's how they sent me to a radar school, period. But with respect to what happened later, that I'm going. It's so long, but I'll start real quick summary. I was offered after I got out and I went to college I got the degree, and within 4 years, they offered me at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard where they build all the submarines. They offered me to head up the entire electronics department on building all new submarines and repairing all the old submarines. You got to remember, when I went to the submarines, I hadn't even had a high school diploma, and here they are after the war. They're offering me to a position in Portsmouth Naval Shipyard to head up the entire the department, and I had to turn it down. I'm going to answer your question. So I had to turn it down. Why did I turn it down? Well, because I wanted that job so badly. I thought, Jesus, this is the ultimate of all my learning and everything else. Here I'm not going to build submarines. And she says, I don't like this weather. The mosquitoes are too big and everything else.
We heard that about Jack. That's how he ended up in California. He didn't like the weather.
See, and so what did she do? Okay, so what they did, they sent me to New York, and I was on the 11th floor, right across from the stock exchange, and I lived in New Jersey. But Jesus, that's another story. To try to get to the 11th story, then going home, different transportations and everything else. But that didn't take very long because my wife says, we're not staying here either. I said, well, what she did, and she did it unbeknownst to me, she took my resume and sent it down to Cape Canaveral. And I got a letter in the mail and said they offered me a job and with more money and to start, we'll talk about it, but go into the Cape Canaveral and do working. So, but here it is. So there's a guy who was the vice president of Western Electric, which I worked for, and his name was Hugh Metcalf, and he called us while we were in our bedroom. The wife and I were sitting talking, and he did everything to talk me out of it. And he said, look, if Bill stays with us, I'm going to give him the head of the electronics department on the new missile we're going to build down at Cape Canaveral. And my wife says, are you going to offer to him tonight? And he says, Jan, I can't do that yet. We haven't got the contract. She said, goodbye.
Yeah, boy, reality sets in.
So I got to Florida.
So
I'll
now
tell you about Florida. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now you're in Florida.
Janet wanted to live in Florida. There you go. Yay, Janet.
Yeah.
But so how did you come across Werner Van Braun? So for those in our audience who don't know who Werner Van Braun is, he was the head rocket man for the German military. He was the guy who was designing the rockets to attack England. And he ended up in America after the war. And he was kind of the main guy behind the whole U.S. space. You know, he's the father of the Mercury astronauts, essentially. So tell us, how did you get connected to him?
Oh, again, that's another long story. When I got sent to Florida, initially, I was working for RCA. And the way Cape Canaveral was established, by the way, there really wasn't much of an Eastern, what do you call it, Eastern Tesseract, so they go by ETR. So with what we have is we have 13 stations, which is, tracking missiles, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, when I got sent down there with them, the first thing they signed me with, there were two people working out of Cape Canaveral. One was the Air Force, and the other was the Army. And but the primary people using the Cape were the Army. And the Army was the General Medeiros, and this is where Dr. Werner von Braun, Dr. Demas, Dr. Gruner, and Henry Clark, and Jack Clark, and Henry Paul, and those kind of people were just beginning. But this, when we first went there, there wasn't even the first missile launch. In fact, there was nothing here yet. They hadn't even built a launch pad when I first went down there. And so, as far from the space business, I'm one of the very, very few people alive who have been in it since the very beginning. I mean, very beginning. And but one of the first things that they gave me was, so I forgot to tell you, the way they Cape Canaveral was working, they had a contract with Pan American World Airways. And Pan American Airways was responsible for the whole Eastern Test Range. But they had broken up into two parts. One is they wanted the electronics department, and the other side they wanted to build all the facilities and the construction and everything else. And so what they did is they gave RCA all of the electronics parts and gave Pan American all the hard parts of going out and building construction and all that. So what they did with me, they put me in charge of of supporting the Army as we got started in the space business. So one of the first things we started out was working with the what we call the Redstone and the Redstone and the Jupiter, the Juno, which was the Army. But by this time, the Navy didn't have anything yet. And they were working on the Atlas program. And by the way, the Atlas program was classified secret. You couldn't even say that. So the Army had already got started on building the really space program. And it's like John said, what we did with Werner von Braun and Dr. Diemers and Dr. Gruner and those people we brought back, those were the Germans who were launching these V2s out of Germany and landing them into England. But when we got back, and in fact, that's a big story in itself. And that's exactly how we captured the group and got them first and brought them back.
Well, there should be a movie about that because the Russians were trying to do the same thing.
Yes,
we were in a battle with the Russians to see who was going to get the German scientists.
They wanted them badly. But that's a long story in itself. But make a long story short, so Werner von Braun. When I was working there, and this is really I say how I get started on the space program, is now I'm responsible for supporting the Army with respect to while they're on the launch pad, and even getting their facilities, working with Pan American to build the facilities for them, and working with the electronics people on the first Redstone in Juno, and all they were was missiles, and then we were just fine missiles, and the funny thing is that when the Air Force got hell, we were blowing up more missiles than we were successful in the very beginning. So there was no such thing as talking into space yet, because Werner von Braun, his big idea was he wanted to do. He only wanted to go to the moon. That was his sole. He always wanted to go to the moon, and so that's what his got into the launch aspect concern. Okay, he wasn't really. That's a long story, but I got to be very good friends with Werner von Braun, and talking to him, I introduced my wife to him, and we became pretty good friends from a business standpoint. I didn't go to his house, he didn't go to our house type stuff. What we were good friends is in a business aspect, and so we sat next to each other, and he told me he turned out to be a fantastic individual. He turned out to be one of the nicest people you'd want to be. And he told me, Bill, that I never really wanted to kill anybody, but if I didn't launch these missiles, I would have been dead. And so I had to do what I would do, just like all of us do, right? We do what we're told. So Werner von Braun, there was a book written about Werner von Braun, and I tried to call their families because I told them I had more stories that I could talk about Werner von Braun that weren't in the book. And the sad part was the author had died just a month before. So I never got back to him. But okay, what was the question? Other than
You met him.
Other than Werner von Braun also. So nobody got as close to Werner von Braun as I did. And I would fly back and forth to Huntsville, Alabama. And I was in the meetings many times with him and a gentleman there in the crowd. But my sole job, being there, was to support the Army with respect to their launch vehicles, and making damn sure that they had the telemetry stations, and they had all the radar ground tracing stations, they had all the radars, they had all the photography and everything else. So I had to go, what I had to do, I had to get on and go to each one of the stations myself and find out what they needed to bring them back. And then I had to develop the budget for it. And then I had to come out and present it at the Air Force, because that's where they got the money. And that's how we got built into the space program. So the space program came later, and how I got into the space program is, and how much I did in the space program, it's unbelievable.
Well, let's get into that. So you meet Warner Van Braun, and you have this famous story about playing hopscotch with them. You want to share that?
Oh yeah, okay. Thanks for reminding me. But
I want to hear this story, Bill. I got to hear this.
Listen.
And then when you get done, I'm going to ask you if you still play hopscotch.
Yes, I do. No, wait a minute. Yeah, that's a yes, but I'll come back to that. But how that happened was so rare. Let me say here, when you just asked a question, when somebody asks you another question, then you get off of it. Then you sort of.
So you're playing hopscotch with?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. So I'm now I'm responsible. I'm in the blockhouse, and I'm now responsible for all the downrange stations, which is 13 stations, and I'm responsible for the whole thing, supporting them. And as I mentioned earlier, there were two people fighting to get into space first, and that one was the Army, and the other was the Air Force. Well, as a normal bureaucratic thing, the systems work. Of course, they gave it to the Americans first. And so they put it on what they call the Polaris with the Navy. And the Polaris was going to be the very first one to launch the vehicle to get into space. And of course, what happened then, it blew up in the pad. And so who's the backup? The backup was the Army, under Gentleman there, so that's where I was. So what happened was we were given 90 days from the blow up of the Polaris until we launched that very first launch satellite into space. And by God, we made it. We actually did it. And so I was in the blockhouse with all the crowd, with, like say, Gentleman there, Dr. Grutter, Dr. Davis, all those other people. And now the guys, the reason why I'm in the blockhouse is because I'm now in contact with all the downrange stations, making sure that they're prepared to record the launch and what have you. And so we launched that thing. First satellite, which is the Explorer 1, the very first satellite ever put into space, and it was successful. And when it was successful, we went down to Melbourne, Florida, and this is where John's talking. We went down to Melbourne, Florida, and we had a big party. We were celebrating that the first launch we put into space. And so I drew hopscotch on the ground, and Werner von Braun and I did hopscotch on the ground. Now, absolutely nobody, you got to picture this first. You got to remember who Werner von Braun was. Here's a guy who was in World War II, and all he was launching missiles all over the place, killing people right and left with the V2s and everything. And he's also blowing up on his own pads and what have you. Here's a guy who's come to the United States. Now here I am, and he and I are sitting down there and playing hopscotch. Unbelievable. And anyway, that's not in his book. And that was one of the stories that I wanted to tell you about the book. Then, of course, I introduced him to my wife. And I remember going to, these big deals that you see, the Hollywood, and they're celebrating. And I remember one meeting we were at, and Werner von Braun was sitting by himself at this meeting, and they were introducing all the very famous people in the audience, which are called Hollywood. And by God, they did not introduce Werner von Braun. Unbelievable. So I went over. That's when I introduced my wife to him, and we talked and we chit-chatted a bit. I couldn't believe that they didn't introduce that guy. So that's a long story in itself, and I've had many, many chances to work with him, and I have more stories. That's why I'm going to write another book. But go ahead.
You
Well, no, I
should,
wanted
Bill,
to
and you've got plenty of time to do it too. Real quick, this is kind of a joke, but you do still drive. Do you still hopscotch?
No, I don't. No, in fact, no,
You
I
gave it
don't.
up.
No, but I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you, this is, in fact, just in 2025, just in 20. So we went to Hawaii. You can believe this or not, but my gosh, there was hopscotch written on the cement at the hotel where we went. Can you believe it? It was hopscotch. So nobody knew what it was. I said, Jesus, God, look, there's hopscotch. And so I took.
Do kids still play hopscotch?
No, I evidently, but I didn't see any kids doing it. But I took photographs. I took hopscotch. So
Hopscotch. Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, so we're
That's
in
it.
Florida. We're working on the Redstone, and so what's sort of the timeline between working on the Redstone rocket and the first launch of GPS?
oh my, oh, that's a long story too. But let's see.
Every one of your stories is long. It's a
I-
good thing you're 101 years old.
That's one of the reasons I'm here, I guess. But oh my goodness gracious, what was the question?
What was the timeline from
Okay.
the Redstone rockets
Oh,
to the first GPS launch?
oh my goodness gracious! Like I said, the very first launches, if you recall, were nothing more than missiles. They were not intended to go to space, and so what we did, launching the vehicles until we got ourselves to a point where we had enough thrust. We had to build up a vehicle that had enough thrust to be able to put that satellite into space.
Mhm.
But going from there, and let me think here just a second. You can believe it or not, but I'm in motion. I'm there. I'm there right now
I
at this
bet.
moment, really. And I'm
This is a
looking at it.
critical moment in
So,
history. While you're
no,
thinking about
no.
that, Bill, this is a critical moment in history.
Yeah,
Let's set the
yeah.
stage. So we don't
But-
have GPS yet. You are on the
Yeah.
launch team that put the
Yeah.
first satellite
Yeah.
in orbit.
Well, that's
Amazing.
That's a strange story too, because what they transferred me out here, they transferred me from Cape Canaveral to California for two reasons. One was that the Air Force was getting into the missile program, the space program, and they had a
Mhm.
program called BMARS, BMARS, the Ballistic
Mhm.
Early Warning Warning System. So I got transferred. That's really the reason why I got transferred there. And but from Florida to here, but on the way out, they told me that as soon as I got out here, I would be promoted to the director of the BMARS program, which was the very first. It was the very first program that the Air Force had to go to space. That's what that was for. There was two reasons. First, it was launching the missiles over the North Pole and
Yeah.
into Russia. That's what it was set for. And they had enough thrust to be able to put it in satellites. So that they transferred me out here to be able to head up their program. But on the way out, I was halfway, ripped up my family, didn't want to come, ripped up my
Oh.
family and headed to the Cape. But on the way, they canceled the program.
Oh,
So the Air
no.
Force now is out of business from the space program, period. The only people
Oh.
left was the only people left was the Army. Okay. So the director that I was supposed to get evaporated. So I didn't get the promotion, even though I ripped up my family. I'm on my way out. And here they said they're going to make me director, and it was gone. Now, that was luck. Why was it luck? Because it was luck. And what the next thing was, they said there was a program by Defense Inspector David Packard, wanted me to, the company did, they wanted me to head up a program called for
Titan?
but no, it was what they call the near term and the far term for the Air Force. but the near term was for the first 5 years, what did the Air Force need from a defense type of thing and offense for the first 5 years, and then what did they need for the next 5 years? I don't
Okay.
know if you want to try to put that in your head sometime, and you try to think, you want to think 5 years ahead, and then another 5 years to do that. Well, we did it. Okay, we actually did it. It took. I worked that program. I worked. I worked 9 months from January. I'm going to lead up to when John said to the first launch. So I worked from 90 hours a week, 90 hours from January the 1st, so January until September. And I never gave up a day at all, worked 7 days a week for 90 hours. I gave up one day to go to church, go to mass, because we were near the end of the program. And so we finished that program. Now, what came out of that was one of the things that came out was the GPS.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what the GPS. GPS is a super complicated system. Nobody really understands how it works. We're talking about 1970 now. I mean, in 1970, and we really haven't had the first launch yet. So when we developed this thing in 1970, the very first launch didn't occur until 1978, and then it didn't complete. It didn't become operational until 1994. Now, why did it take so long? Because what we did, we generated. This is 1970. This is when the computers were only 64K, which is nothing. This is like me talking to you at 64K. And so here we developed it. Now, what is this GPS? Well, the GPS has 3 constellations, and each constellation is composed of six satellites. Then in 1970, it's more now, but in 1970 it was only 6. So you had to put 6 satellites into space to cover a certain area on the ground for one. Then the second generation was another similar, but it was to cover a different ground. And then the third generation is the 6 satellites. It covers it. So it covers the whole world. It covers the whole world in satellites from 3 different satellites. Now picture this: you put 6 satellites into space. Okay. So what? So what does that do? You have a ground system. You have to have a ground system to do track. I did all the ground system for the satellite. Okay. And that's documented in a classified document. It was secret type of thing back then. But anyway, what we did, we put 6 satellites in space. You always had to see 4. Every time these 6 circles around, you always see 4 at one time. When one goes down, the other comes up. Another goes down, another comes up. So you always see 4. Well, why do you need 4? Because you only need 3 normally to find what it is. The reason why you need 4, because you need that 4th satellite to give you the time that all of the other data that you're getting. So you know that data that you're looking at now, but each one of the other satellites is gives you, and this is the time. So when you look at your book, today is so damn different. I don't know if you can picture us generate that in 1970. 1970.
Well,
Wow.
it's come a long way, and people still can't find the grocery store with their GPS. So, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the GPS is something. So what happened? So the study we did, they took our president and they took him to Washington D.C., gave them the highest technical award period, and us 21 guys who busted our rear end and did 9 months of giving everything we possibly could to our country and to that program. We got nothing. They weren't even acknowledged. And I wrote a letter to the company later, and I said, hey, look, we don't want anything. All we want is recognition. We don't want any money. And they just wrote back and said, thank you for your letter, blah, 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 blah. Thank you for your service, blah, blah. In other words, they considered that. As of today, the 21 engineers that did that work got no credit whatsoever, none. And yet, if you get the book, you'll find 4 classified documents. I'm the signer. I headed it. I control it. It's my name everywhere. His name is nowhere. It's nowhere in the book. He never looked at it, never came to a meeting, never gave an input, nothing. That's the way the bureaucratic system works. Anyway, that's GPS.
Okay, so now we do GPS, and then how did you end up on the solid rocket booster program for the space shuttle?
Oh, I see.
Because you
So
just
many
jump in,
layers to this life. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
you just
amazing.
jump in from one of a kind thing to the next one of a kind thing.
Right.
No. The so I'm out here working this. So I worked the very first. I got involved
I
with.
smell Janet in this story somewhere.
I got it. She'll
Where
come
did
in.
Janet want to go next?
Well, see, don't digest me, but he brings up a good point. You picture this now. Here's a gal. I met her when she was 13 years old. I married her when she was 18. Okay, and I'll tell you a story about that later. And I had 7 kids from her. Now here's a husband who you got all these kids when you're home. This is after the war, of course, I'm home, but I'm traveling and hiring people and everything else. And you take a wife. When he comes home, all she does, she got those babies when he leaves, okay? And then, so she raised all the kids. You think about it for a second. And she stuck to me like glue. If I had been her, I'd have said, get lost, get out of my life. But she didn't. So I had her for 72 years and 4 months. And she was a one-man woman, and I was a one-woman man. And that's the way it is today. I've had my share. Now, what else did you want to know?
Well, no, so we create GPS, and then how do we get into the space shuttle solid rocket booster?
Oh, well, the same people that were developing the rockets for to go into space were both for the Army and for the Air Force type of thing. So I became, what I did after this, I became the manager of the solid rocket booster program. And so I used to travel around on that. And one of the things I would do would be, believe it or not, is that when we recovered the rockets after a shot, which they did after tied to the Titan or tied to the launch vehicle, the Titans started out with a Titan 2 and Titan 3. So I would go to the manufacturer, and I'd take a look at when I go to Huntsville and look at what do I call it, the rings. When you stack solid rocket boosters, there's a double ring in there, neoprene, double ring in there. One was, the second one was primarily a backup. In almost every case, when I inspected the rings, they had broken through. So here's 2, and the second one had the first one had broken through. Not all of them, but several. And this was at a time, I don't know if you recall, when you have a washer or anything like that, you can bend it, type of thing. When it's soft, it's like, but whenever it's cold, you can take it breaks. The same thing happened in the solid rocket booster program. So when what was the name of the one?
Space shuttle.
When the space shuttle blew up, it was 19 degrees for several days in Florida. And what you have, before you launch a vehicle, you have people responsible to say, go, 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 go. What they were doing, you take each one of the systems that you have on board that they're responsible for, and they'll say, go, 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 go. At the same time, while they're doing this, there's 3 guys that weren't even there. They were saying, no, please, no, don't go. That they went anyway. And what happened? A few seconds later, blew up and took all those people with them. And what was this for? It was nothing for a bureaucratic show. They should have waited on it. And it's today. And that's why I had no, when you talk to NASA, I get so upset. I don't want anything to do with NASA, nothing. I think it was one of the worst organizations, Bill. The only reason why they exist today is that it's the money flow that you get from NASA that flows into the contractors that do all the work. NASA does nothing, nothing. It's all done by contractors. And
True.
so,
That's true.
so when
Yeah.
they said go, and of course they went and blew it up. And
That was what,
you-
1987, I think, right?
uh,
Right around there, 86, 87, when
Yeah.
the space shuttle.
Yeah, so you don't hear anything about that. So anyway, my book tells you the truth, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I tell the truth,
yeah.
TRUTH, truth. And
Yes, we like the
in
truth.
the book I got,
1986.
I'm going to get into some of this and tell you. Go ahead.
No, so where were you on January 28th, 1986, when the Challenger blew up? Were
I
you in
was at
California or?
No, I was in Cape Canaveral. No, I was in Cape Canaveral. And so the first, I forget the first, I was on the first 17 launches of the Titan program out of Cape Canaveral, first 17. And I was, you talked about what else you see, and I was also the launch director on the launch vehicles. You talk about, here's a kid in high school, quit high school as a junior and comes out and goes and and I got my bachelor's degree. First I got my GED, I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree, and started trying to get my PhD. Here's a guy. This is one of the reasons before we're through, and I'm going to tell you one of the reasons I'm here, and one of the reasons I'm even talking to you and things like this. I want to inspire these new kids. If I can do it
Yes.
with no education system, if I can do it, damn it, you can do it. And so one of the things I'm
Yes.
good. No, I want you to. I don't want you to quit working. Don't ever quit working, ever. I'm talking
you got
to
your
you,
and,
Stacy.
and you got your GED after the war. Just want to make
Yeah.
the timeline clear. You got your
Mhm.
GED after
after
the war.
war. Got the
Yeah.
yes. Why did I get
Quit
out
high
of the service?
school junior year, yeah.
Okay, no, I'll get that. Why did I get out of the service? Well, the reason I married in January January the 5th of 1946. Okay, the war ended in August, October of 1945, and so I hadn't even had a chance to go date with my wife and the normal things you do. I came right out, got married. So now, let's see, here that was 1946, and I got out of the service when November 1947, almost 2 years later. Well, 2 years later, I already had my firstborn, and my wife was pregnant with the second one, all right? And so what did I want to do? I said, to hell with this Navy. I don't want any more Navy work, because the downtime after the World War II, what was the Navy, they would take our submarines out on the weekends. They'd go to different islands and everything else, and just gallivant and shoot around because the officers wanted to go there and they wanted to keep training up. Hell, that's the time we wanted to stay home and take care of our kids. And so here it comes a weekend, and I believe it or not, I look back and I'm a Catholic, and I firmly believe in Catholicism. And I would make my wife, when she was pregnant, go to church with me, and she's throwing up and all that. I look back and you stupid jerk. I had no idea what was going on. But anyway, so I wanted to raise my kids, and they wouldn't let me because they was always going to sea. And my wife was left home. She's the first kid at 18 years old, for heaven's sakes, and taking care of it. So I said, "Well, hell with it." So I'm still a radioman first class on the USS the Sea Leopard. And the war was over. Wait a minute, the war was over, and I get discharged, and I went down the plank, and the skipper done. And by the way the service works, they never call you by your first name. Never, 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 never. They always
What was
call you
your
by
name?
your last name, and you always
Okay.
have to call them by sir or whatever. So anyway, I went down the plank, and they said, Dillon, if you stay here, I'll promote you. You have a chief of the boat, and you have a chief radioman. Well, I turned around and told him, shove it right up your, and I said, I didn't like the skipper. I said, I don't want anything to do with you. I said, I wouldn't stay on this boat come hell or high water. Boom. But then as I'm walking down, I'm thinking to myself, you stupid jerk. you know, you're still in the service. You still got 2 months left. And he could call you back and discharge the hell out of you, you know, and put you in the, what do you call it, prison or whatever. But I said, to hell with it. I was never controlled. My life, I was never controlled. Even today, I'll never stand anybody controlling me. Anyway, that's a long story.
So now we're past NASA. The space shuttle blows up, Challenger,
Yeah.
and then what happens? What do you do now?
Well, forget that. Even that when we got the first shot. When I worked with JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory out here in California. I worked very closely with them. And I forgot the other thing. Jesus. Well, let me go back a little bit and I'll come back to this one. While I was still in the Cape, after I got out of school and everything, the way we launched vehicles was you launch vehicles, it's all done by telemetry and everything else. And after I launched, it would take you anywhere from 3 to 5 days to check whether or not you passed or not. You have to go through and look at all the data that you get, and you'll have, I mean, every system, you have to look at it, all the data points, and then before you decide whether or not it was safe or not. Well, I said, BS, that's a hell of a way to do it. So I did. I went back to high school. Went back to college. Well, it's good to get my master's degree. I took courses in software, how you build software. And so I developed a system on software, how you could launch a vehicle using software so that at the conclusion of the test, you either passed or you didn't pass. Well, it did. We had a system that I worked on for that. It took me 2 years to do it. And it was a system called Ocala, which is Online Computer Launch System. Ocala, it's all documented, written, and you'll see me as the primary author in it, and developed the very first electronic checkout for launch vehicles. So what we had to do, we had to launch 3 vehicles to prove that we could do it, because we still had to make sure that over the 3 days that everything was right, but we knew exactly that they passed it right away. And after 3 flights, we proved that we could do it. Now everybody uses that launch vehicle, and NASA used it. NASA was the first one to pick it up and start using it. That's what I did before I moved out, before I got out here. So then the other question, which one was the other work? And before I digressed.
No, I was asking about after the Challenger, the solid rocket program, you came back to California.
Oh.
And then you have more kids. And don't you end up coaching baseball?
Oh, well, no, I didn't. Oh, at home, I was a Little League manager too. Besides all this, I was a Little League manager. I have a Little League manager, and they voted me as the Little League Manager of the Year, and my wife is the Little League Woman of the Year. And these are kids that grew up in the area in which I live. Believe it or not, these were the kids that grew up in the area. That every one of them, when we moved into the place, it was only 19 houses. It was very, very small. And then you begin to grow a little bit. So we had a few young kids and growing. So anyway, so I got very close with them, and I'd go visit their house. And I would take them down, even when I get time off, I'd still do it, take it down, play with them. And just recently, when I had my 100th birthday, we had a guy, they're in their 60s now, and this kid came in and he knocked on my door and said, Mr. Dillon, and by the way, even when I was young and we were cool, they always called me Mr. Dillon. It was never Bill or anything. It was always Mr. Dillon. It was always a boss. And he said, Mr. Dillon. And I said, oh, Jim. I said, what the hell are you doing here? He said, well, he said, sold my house and I'm moving to another state. And then he said, before I leave, I want to come and tell you, I'll get tears in my eyes even now, that how you were is my life, how you affected my life. There's a guy 60 years old come back and tell you that you had such an impact on him. And that's the way.
Well, let's finish up with that, because we have to finish up. So what would you like to tell the parents and the kids out there that are out there? Jack gave us a little bit about what he wanted to say. So let's hear it from your perspective.
Well,
because I know you go visit schools.
I do. And And it started out, it's never, and it's Frank, Jack, it's never about us, never. It's always, you're always a giver. It's always a giver. And you look for nothing in return. In fact, recently, as far as one of my real objectives is, I wish people would call me. I wouldn't mind if they call me every day and let me get in front of these classes and talk to the kids. And I'll tell you 2 stories real quick. One I just recently, I had a teacher for one of the elite junior high schools, and he asked me, Bill, he said, would you mind coming and talk to one of my class? And I said, no, I wouldn't mind it. He said, well, I got 3 classes. Would you mind doing that? I said, geez, hell no, I'll be glad to do it. So anyway, so I went to class with beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and believe it or not, the first class was a whole hour, ding, ding, ding. Next class came in, talked for another hour, ding, ding, ding. Next class came in, ding, ding, ding. And so I talked for 3 solid hours without a break. Now, what the hell did I told the teacher, look, as you can tell from me, you just get me talking. It helps me, I can keep you here for 3 weeks. But anyway, so what
Jack's
happened?
perking up.
So just what happened? So what happened was that I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to, when I give a talk, I never prepare a note, never. And I don't know what I'm going to say. No way. Just like we're here today. I have no idea. So what I did was I told him, look, I'm not going to give you 3 speeches. So what I did, I gave him 3 speeches. What I did, the first one's I told him all about the depression. And then when the next class came in, the teacher would go to speak what I did. And then I talked about what I did during the war. Then the next class came in, ding, ding, the next class came in. Then I told them everything I did after war. So I got 3 different classes, I gave 3 different speeches without a break in between. And one kid in the second class he sort of dozed. When I give a talk, I watch the audience. And if I'm losing the audience, I cut it off right away. But anyway, so this kid was dozing on. So I stopped right then and there. I looked at the teacher and said, if there's no interest in my speech, I'm done. We'll finish it. I see that either wake up or tell him to get the hell out of here. And by God, he popped right up. He was wide awake for the rest of the day.
Good.
That's the kind of guy you're talking to. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Well, we might. It seems like we're gonna maybe have to have you come back for part 3. You got more stuff to go through.
More
But
stuff.
wait a minute. No, you know General Flynn?
yes,
Well, anyway, General Flynn has authorized me to write the book of my life. And
Good.
what he gave it to Cameron Mitchell, Cameron Moore to do it. But in the meantime, what happened was that we found out we found out that the New York Times has found out about me, and what
Great.
they want to do, the New York Times, they have written 60 bestsellers, and
Yeah.
so the Times said they want to write the story of my life, and they're going to pay for it. They're going to come and do everything. So we're going to be starting that within the next couple of weeks or so. So you'll see me
That's
again from
We
the New
hope
York
so.
Times. Anyway, but they don't know what they're getting into. But when this thing starts talking, I'm like Jack. We're Moran here. We're
Yeah.
very, very fucking. We're very, very lucky. We're very astute. We're the brains. We got all the brains.
no, it's
we don't
awesome.
forget
It's like
Yeah.
having a Encyclopedia Britannica in
Totally.
your living room.
Yep.
We're lucky.
It is.
We're very. On this conversation, you believe it or not, you just all we done was hit the high spots.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
So much
we
more to
appreciate
discuss for sure.
we really appreciate your time for both you and Jack.
Yes.
It's been an awesome afternoon, and with that, we'll sign off, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dillon.
What?
Not you, but
Next Thursday.
Oh, no, Hope
No,
Springs
no.
Eternal every Thursday at 12 o'clock Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern. Join us then.